Go ahead and get this meeting of the Public Safety Committee started at 1:01. All right. First, we will have the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to do so? So moved. This will be a little different today. You will all notice that we are minus one of our committee members, but we do still have quorum, so we can proceed, and we can still take votes today. So thank you very much. It has been moved, and I will second. And it appears that we do have an agenda. Thank you very much for that.
Do you want to go ahead and make the vote?
Thank you. Okay, so we will move that now to a vote. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you very much. This should be very easy today if we keep it up in that spirit. I would actually, and yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Manager. I was actually going to do that, and in lieu of having already passed the agenda, so to speak, I do not believe that anyone in this space will mind if we take a moment of silence for the passing of Assistant Chief Terry Scott. Pierce, thank you very much, Terry Pierce. If we could all just take just a moment of silence. Thank you all very much. Madam Manager, I do believe that there is a service that is scheduled at the Hall of Heroes on Wednesday, correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair. It is on Wednesday at 4 o'clock at the Hall of Heroes.
Thank you so much. I certainly do plan to be in attendance at that. All right, our next item is a listening session. Some of you may recall that in our probably a commission meeting a month or so ago, Commissioner Sacco made a suggestion that we take the opportunity to hear from community residents on the very important issue of gun violence. A couple of months ago as well, the city did declare gun violence as a crisis in Gainesville, and in so doing has committed to addressing the issue in a number of ways that are still to be determined. But at this time, we want to enter into what would be our first listening session that is basically an open opportunity for anyone who is present to come and take just a few moments to share any personal experience and anything that you'd like to share with this Public Safety Committee with regards to gun violence, how it has impacted you, and how it is you would like to see the Commission address that issue. We'll invite an individual up to the microphone at this time if you so wish. Thank you, Reverend Griner.
Okay, thank you, and the members of the committee. You know, when I come to these meetings, also Reverend Milford L. Griner, retired United Methodist pastor. You know, when I come here to glean information, but whenever I do come here, I don't like to always mention about my own personal experience because it was so long ago, but I come here because I have mentioned before that I am a victim of gun violence. At the age of 11, shot by a gang in my hometown of Philadelphia. And it changed my life, caused permanent damage to one of my eyes, caused a reduction in vision over the years where right now I'm armed, not quite, but my vision is greatly diminished in my right eye. But the reason I mention it is because every time I hear about any episode of gun violence, one, it breaks my heart, and then just the one just last night, just a few blocks from here. And all I can say is that drawing on what happened to me when I was 11 years old, a goal that I have as a citizen of Gainesville is to do all that I can do to help stop these terrible episodes of gun violence. And so I come here now that I have more time to do so. My hope and my prayer is that all of us working together, and I fully support what this community is doing, to dialogue, come up with any kind of things that can help. I don't want to see any more lives lost or people injured because of gun violence. What happened to me taught me that no one is immune, no matter what the age. So I support fully any efforts to bring an end to the cycle of gun violence here in the city of Gainesville, and I applaud the work of the city and the committee to help lead the effort to stop it, do all that could be done to bring an end to it. So that's my comments. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Reverend Griner. It's always really powerful to hear the personal testimonies of those who have been personally involved. And we thank you so much for being so free and open with us to share. Kali, did I see you inching up to your seat?
You see, I was creeping toward the mic. Yeah, I've had some experiences here in Gainesville. Years ago, I worked for a program called Community Control, and that was kind of like kiddies probation. Juveniles who had contact with law enforcement referred to us for kind of a social work sort of follow-up, being in touch with the families, writing a recommendation to the court. And I always noticed in those situations, my coworkers who were more seasoned would tell me, you be careful, these kids are dangerous. Don't be alone with them, don't turn your back. And I did just the opposite. I treated them like they were my own kids, but I also was very pushy with them about introducing history. I also worked with a program called Bora Jumamosi, a Saturday school program, where we dealt with Afrocentric lesson plans that were brought to Alachua County by Charles Chestnut III when he was on the school board, but the school system had never implemented this material. Our gang of amateurs on Saturdays raised the grades of kids with these history-oriented lesson plans in 5 different subjects. And these kids, the ones I saw in community control, the ones I saw at Bora Jumamosi, that's the Saturday school, we saw their self-esteem and their level of achievement and academic abilities rise. And that relates to the fact that there is one group of immigrants to this nation that were brought here and forcefully, violently separated from all stories of self, from history, from culture, religion, food, names, everything. In fact, beaten if they attempted to transmit this. Every other group of immigrants that came to this country took their turn at being the new, you know what, that N-word, and then graduated based on their ability to support each other and blend into the economics of this country, as well as being a little bit more able phenotypically to blend in, if you know what I mean. So it is imperative to solve this case of enforced amnesia. Our kids are taught so many negative images of blackness from the beginning of school onward and from the media. And who can they lash out with except those that look like themselves, who are in the same confined space where they are? When you learn an image when you learn a negative self-image, it hurts less, a little less, to hurt the one that looks just like you rather than hurt yourself. But sometimes we have kids go to the extreme and commit suicide by cop. And it all has to do with a damaged self-image. And we have that on a community scale because of the stripping out of history. So putting that history back can be a very important way to affect the kids themselves, to elevate their attitude and their image of each other.
Thank you very much, Kali. For For those who may not know me, those who do will always tell you that I'm a huge proponent of the arts and their power. And I'm really excited that the city of Gainesville last year unanimously supported the creation of a cultural arts center that has been proven through the data to be a meaningful and direct way to deter youth from violence. So I'm really, really excited, Madam Manager, when we get back to that conversation to hear where we are on the Cultural Arts Center, because it is going to be, I know, a wonderful way to help deter individuals from the streets and also accomplish, Kali, what you just suggested, is that missing piece of education and knowledge of self. So thank you very much for sharing that. Taryn, our next item.
This is discussion item number 2023-308, the GPD K-9 Unit update. With the recommendation, the Public Safety Committee receive an update on the motion made at the November 16, 2022 Special Commission meeting regarding the GPD K-9 Unit.
All right, thank you so much, Taryn. Madam Manager?
Sure. Madam Chair, we have, I'm sorry. The attorney wanted to say something.
Absolutely.
I don't mean to interrupt, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to make a quick statement regarding public boards and proper notice. I know we have several members of the, I think we have several members of the Police Advisory Council Committee that have come here, and I know they're going to really want to address matters that are very important to them, important to all of us. But I do want to caution that this has not been noticed as a meeting of the PAC, so that for more than one of them to engage in discussion with any sort of back and forth about matters that might come before the PAC, it would not be an appropriate meeting of the PAC because it hasn't been noticed as such. I'm not saying they obviously can't attend, but it may be very frustrating with them when it comes time to wanting to participate, that absent that proper notice of it being a meeting of the PAC, more than one of them coming together to discuss matters that are likely to come before them would really be inappropriate, I believe. And just to, and I mentioned that to in passing, just real quickly, to Reverend Griner on the way in, and I see since then a couple others may have come in.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Attorney Nee. And so am I hearing that they just need to be mindful, perhaps maybe just, is it that we'll have a problem if more than one of them speaks?
I think if there's a give and take of information regarding matters that are likely to come before them,
Yeah.
then it's problematic. It could very well be deemed as a meeting of that board
Absolutely.
that hasn't been noticed, and I don't want to see the work they do being distracted by people concerned that they're having unnoticed meetings. This is a noticed meeting, obviously.
It
It's
is.
a noticed meeting of the Public Safety Committee, though. So I hope that makes it as clear as mud, but just a caution to them that any information that they want to discuss amongst themselves, they should be discussing at a properly noticed meeting of the PAC.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Nee. Commissioner Chestnut?
Thank you. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, then I wonder if it's best for when one member of the PAC, the Police Advisory Council, is that what we're referring to, the PAC? Okay. If when one person comes to the microphone, should the other members of the PAC exit the room?
I'm not sure if that
would work.
I think I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think any of us should expect that they will be able to get up and address concerns, despite how much I know they badly would want to, because it's not their meeting, but they can certainly be here, take it all in, and then take those matters up at their meetings. And in the future, maybe we want to consider jointly noticing or something along those lines, because this is it's a frustration that I suspect will recur from them. They're part of the PAC because they care about these issues, and they're here because they want to be involved. And it's going to be frustrating for them that they can't be involved, and maybe it's best to let other members that are other neighbors that are here to know that there's a reason why they're not stepping up, because they're constrained to from the public records by the Sunshine Law.
Thank you very much, Attorney Nee. Members of the PAC, I certainly am sure that you have heard that and that you will govern yourselves accordingly. And we're glad to see you. We're glad that you're here. And we look forward to the input that you will be able to give when you can. Thank you very much. Okay, Madam Manager.
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, Commissioner Chestnut, at the November 16th, 2022 commission, it was a special meeting of the commission. There was a motion approved. It had 3 elements to it, and they are listed here in the package as backup. The first element of the motion was what the Gainesville Police Department / municipal government would look like with a modified version of the K-9 unit or without it, based on the experience of other cities. The second element of the motion was what other cities are doing in terms of a citizen oversight board and framework. And the last element of that motion was to request a cultural audit of the K-9 unit to see where the issues are and bring back a recommendation. We have provided an update on all 3 parts of that motion, and I will just briefly summarize them. Chief Scott, of course, and his staff are here, and they can expound as necessary. The following scenarios are provided for discussion relative to the first element regarding what a modified version of the K-9 unit would look like. And so the first item, if we had no K-9 unit, what would that scenario potentially look like? More subjects that commit criminal acts, evade capture, and continue to commit crimes, increase in crime rate, increase in number of response to resistance deployments, increase in number of subjects and officers injured during arrests, possible increase in deadly force situations, increased risk to officer and public safety, and increased narcotics on street. The scenario if a K-9 unit with no apprehension was in place, that would potentially result in an increase in crime rate, an increase in number of response to resistance deployments, increase in number of subjects and officers injured during arrests, possible increase in deadly force situations, and an increased risk to officer and public safety. A third scenario, a K-9 unit with focus on forcible felonies and imminent threat. Possible impacts of that would be loss of nonviolent felony and misdemeanor apprehensions, maintain focus on using appropriate response to resistance to remove violent subjects from the streets. And the last scenario presented has to do with K-9 units as we currently have the unit comprised, which is status quo. So K-9 unit with status quo, maintain focus on using appropriate response to resistance to remove violent subjects from the streets, maintain focus on property crimes, allowing for apprehension of subjects committing significant property loss. It further goes on to say relative to that element, it says in researching other Florida agencies who have modifications to their units, several of them utilize bloodhounds in addition to apprehension dogs. It should be noted that in Florida, 96 out of 96 local law enforcement agencies serving populations of 50,000 or more either have their own K-9 apprehension team or they utilize a local, state, or federal partner for apprehensions. In 2022, an independent review of the GPD, Gainesville Police Department K-9 policy, was completed by V2 Global, and the Gainesville Police Department implemented recommendations in the current K-9 unit policy. GPD has also made additional modifications to the K-9 unit policy concentrating on forcible felonies. By the unit operating under different criteria, it would modify their deployment on certain calls for service. From 2019 to 2019 to 2022, GPD K-9 assisted in the apprehension of 598 individuals responsible for crimes. The results without a K-9 unit would result in fewer individuals responsible for crimes being located and held responsible for their deviant behavior by the criminal justice system. Without the K-9 unit, there would be a potential increase in risk to officer safety and community safety. An update on motion part 2. The Office of the City Clerk conducted policy research into the workings of citizen oversight boards and other Florida municipalities. The following summarizes the research, and the full report is included in the agenda item backup. There are 4 items that are highlighted relative to the research done by the clerk's office, and I do see Morgan Spicer here from the clerk's office that produced that information. The first item, one of the more robust boards, belongs to Miami, which gives its 13-member civilian investigative panel authority to conduct investigations and issue subpoenas. The CIP, Civilian Investigative Panel, has an executive director and an independent legal counsel, and operates on a budget established by the City Commission. Requests and recommendations submitted to the city manager and the police chief must receive it in a written response within 45 days. In Key West, it permits a citizens review board to retain the services of an attorney and to hire professional investigators to conduct investigations, inquiries, and hearings. The board works as appropriate with the state attorney and the chief of police. It is required to conduct its activities consistent with applicable law, including the Florida Government and the Sunshine Law and labor laws. A third option, routinely oversight boards are advisory that report to the chief of police, the commission, and/or the city manager. In addition, 2 of the 11 boards have subpoena authority. 2 of the 11 boards are strictly advisory. 9 of the 11 boards that were researched have their authority codified in ordinance, and typically the boards have no authority prior to the completion of the administrative investigation by the respective police departments. Other cities have active police advisory boards. They rely on a mix of responsibilities similar to GPD's Police Advisory Council, with some different elements, however. The main function always is to serve as a liaison between law enforcement and the community while providing an extra layer of oversight. The number of members on similar panels in our state ranges from 9 in Fort Lauderdale and Fort Myers to 26 in Tallahassee. An update on motion, part 3 of the motion. The City Auditor's Office, the Department of Human Resources, and the Office of Equity and Inclusion are evaluating this part of the motion and will be seeking more clarity from the City Commission. Also, I'd like to report that we had, in addition to the meeting on in November, we had 2 community meetings that were held, and we are scheduling to have 1 additional meeting, I think, in another week or so. I think since the special meeting in November, we have had a limited deployment of the K-9 unit. The K-9 unit is currently going through some additional training, hiring of officers, some revisions to its internal operating guidelines, and as well, I think that the new supervisor is on board and is also to be going through some additional training. The 2 community meetings that we held, one was at the Martin Luther King Center, and the last one was at Williams Elementary School last week. And that hopefully addresses at least the 3 elements of the motion that was made and approved actually back in November, and some additional activities that have occurred since that time.
Thank you very much, Madam Curry. Well, Commissioner Chestnut, I think we have gotten an interesting update, and I thank you for that, Madam Curry. I know that when this issue was brought forward and when that motion was made, there were several moving parts to it. And to be very honest with you, that meeting that night was probably one of the most intense meetings that I have had the opportunity to sit through thus far in my tenure as a commissioner. And it's very easy to understand why. Because at the core of all of this is the issue of safety, and safety for everyone. So we have heard from the police department that the K-9s are needed to keep them safe. And we are also hearing from the community that there are great concerns with the use of the K-9s and how that safety has sometimes been compromised when individuals have come into contact with the K-9s. So I asked for the research that you all have done and put that motion out on the floor. I'm grateful to know that you are still working. I did want to make that very clear, that your policy changes are not complete.
That is correct, Commissioner. If I just can say one thing, the police department's assertion of K-9 unit, the use of K-9 is not just the protection of the officers, but it's the protection of the community as a whole. I just wanted to say that, and yes, ma'am, by all means, the policy revisions are still going through a review process what I shared with you and other commissioners is that policy going through iterations. You can see some of the edits that have been suggested, based on meetings, based on the consulting firm that was brought in. So it is still going through iterations. They are still open. It has not been shared with the officers because it's not final. Obviously, they have a base to work from, but because of what has occurred, the interest in having input into how that actually rolls out, they are still open to that, and we hopefully will get to the end of that shortly so we can solidify the unit and the policies around it.
Absolutely. Manager Curry, while you're still somewhat leaned in, there was also a brief discussion of the issue of data collection.
Yes.
And I'm curious as to what the status update is on that, if you are at the point where you can share a little bit of that with us as well.
Yes, ma'am. I actually asked the police department last week because I know they have been submitting on a weekly basis those data, the data to you, and it is quite voluminous because of the time frame involved in trying to do the research around it. I am told that we are probably within a month of being done with that. It may be even shorter, 8 weeks. So I'm hearing specifically from the chief that about another 8 weeks worth of work is still needed to close that out.
Okay.
So that's a month and a couple of, weeks beyond that.
Thank you. That's one piece of the data issue that I'm actually referring to. The other piece was there was concern from the community about data being able to be made public, or how quickly they were able to receive information about what was happening inside the unit. Was that also something that you were able to speak to?
I'm not quite sure what that data request is from the community. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I really am not.
It's the idea that when data is collected or when information comes in, when things happen, when incidents happen in the Gainesville Police Department, specifically the K-9 unit, that there be some sort of reasonable, if you will, turnaround of that information and when it's available to the community.
I don't want to say the wrong thing, which is why my mouth was agape.
That's good.
It was really a gape because I'm like, so I don't know. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I was going to ask them.
I don't have an answer to Commissioner Duncan Walker's question because I'm really not sure what has been requested and the time lag to the response.
Right.
And so I would need to literally call the chief up and maybe ask him if he's aware of any specific request for information that has not been granted based on whatever it is, based on their the availability of it. I don't know what kind of confidentiality may be around it. Do you know specifically what the concern is?
No, I don't.
It's in general, thank you, Chief Scott. It's in general, just in terms of data being made available to the public. It's a very general, it doesn't have to do with a specific request.
We annually do a response to resistance report, which includes not just the K-9 information, but all of our uses of force. Every time that we have a use of force or response to resistance, that's done on an annual basis. And so we produce that every year. In fact, we have one that's about to come out for 2022. That should be out within the next couple of weeks, and we will summarize in that report all the use of the force, all the incidents of response to resistance that we have in that report. That's done on an annual basis, and that's published, and that's open for anyone to get upon request.
And they call the police department, they come into the police department, you email it, they have to pick up a hard
No,
copy?
this is typically, we put this online. And let
Is
me
it online?
check. Yeah, we place that
Okay.
online annually. Again, that's our effort to be transparent, that every time we put hands on a person, anytime we use force, we want the public to be able to see how often we do it and frankly, how many people were involved in it. So that's produced annually, and it's available on our website.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Chestnut?
Yeah, I think just for clarification, I was going to say, Chief, that if there's an investigation going, if you're undergoing an investigation, I could see where the data would not be immediately available to anyone calling the police department. And
Yes.
is that what you're saying? Because you're saying it's produced annually, But if you have an investigation, that's where I'm going. Do I would see there being a problem in releasing that information immediately if you're using it for an
The
investigation.
data is collected on an ongoing basis, whether it's published annually. The information reference to a specific incident, that information, and not speaking of data, but just information in general, that information is going to be not available until the conclusion of any administrative investigations that have to occur, which is by state statute. So
Right.
if we have an
That's
administrative.
where I was going.
Yes.
That's
Yes, ma'am.
the response I was looking for.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if I might supplement, Madam Chair, if I might supplement what the chief is saying, if there is a request for information from the public, that request can also be made of my office, and I would be able to evaluate, based on whether it is an ongoing case where we can't release information until the investigation is complete, or whether it is information shy of a year's annual report, and we're able to just summarize and provide that information year to date. I'm happy to do that if that request should come into my office.
Thank you very much, Madam Curry. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
So,
Let's hear from the public.
absolutely. I'm only hesitating because
Okay.
we can circle back. But let's open up the floor now. We do have some individuals that I do see that might be here to speak. We welcome you at this time to come and take 3 minutes at the microphone for your public comment. Taryn, did you take names? You did? Okay, who is our first speaker?
Worth.
Thank you.
Donna.
Thank you to the commissioners and to the city manager, Cynthia Curry. Yes. My comment is the Azalea Trails neighborhood general opinion about the GPD K-9 unit should be reinstated. Only after newly trained dogs and handlers and the division supervisor, I don't know who that person is, but I assume that person is responsible for all the activity with the K-9 unit. And nothing like this should ever happen again. Just remember, we have an excellent police department, and I would like to see new faces there, as well as good people working for the city with concerns about anything they have to use those K-9s for. Now, if you do not follow the guidelines, what happens? Your division supervisor should know every ounce of what's going on with this particular unit. The GPD chief and the staff should be given an increase also in salaries. Please don't give them peanuts just to do the work. That's so important, saving lives especially. And the best officers are recruited and will follow guidelines to serve and protect the community. The race has nothing to do with this. It's the attitude of the officers, and that's important to us. I want to thank you, and this is from Wayne Fields, who is the chair of Azalea Trails and the residents of Azalea Trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bright.
Good afternoon. I'm Donna Tereth. I am speaking to you from two roles here. First is the wife of K-9 Sergeant, retired K-9 Sergeant Don Tereth, And the next is the lieutenant, the shift commander of the midnight shift of the Gainesville Police Department. You wanted some personal history, and believe me, I'm old enough to have a lot of personal history. One evening, my husband was in the process of apprehending a suspect when the suspect turned with a firearm to shoot at my husband. Our canine, Alf, was released, and he removed that gun from the suspect's hand. Two things probably happened that night. One, I didn't become a widow. My children still had a father to raise them. But the other thing that probably happened, more than likely, is the suspect's wife didn't become a widow. His children weren't raised without a father, because that dog saved lives that night, undoubtedly. Well, I'll be forever indebted to the K-9 and the K-9 unit. Now, as a lieutenant with the Gainesville Police Department midnight shift, when I was there, we had 8 to 10 K-9s in service. Most of them were assigned to either the evening shift or the midnight shift, because that's when most of the crime happens, when the sun goes down. Our zone structure was different than it is now, and I can't speak to how the department is handling their zone assignments. However, we had enough staffing and enough canines on the night shift that I could put an officer in every zone area, and on most nights have at least 1 or maybe 2 canines that did nothing but respond to in-progress crimes or crimes where there would have been a weapon or a track needed, and they were there immediately because that's what they were assigned to do. With a K-9 unit of 2 canines, it's all reactive. There's nothing going to be proactive. They're not going to be able to be there at the time they are immediately needed unless it's just luck. If you look, not too recently, the city had a double homicide and another person injured. The crime was immediately discovered. They had video from the neighborhood cameras with the suspect running away, and there was no K-9 to deploy. How tragic would it have been if that suspect, who just apparently killed 2 people and injured another, had run into the home and killed more people? And if you don't think that's possible, it just happened in Orlando. Please support the K-9 unit, not just for the officers, but the citizens of this town, for our community, for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Taryn, our next speaker.
Our next speaker, we have Tom Swear, followed by C.J. Parker Warren.
I'm Don Sareth. Thank you for allowing me to speak. This is a very serious topic. I'm well aware of that. I was in K-9 for 18 and a half years. The ones that, the officers that started the K-9 unit with the Gainesville Police Department trained me. I wrote the first manual that the department ever had dealing with police K-9 because we simply did not have such a document at that time. I was placed on a committee that certain selected officers were asked to contribute to write the standardized training manual for police K-9s in the entire state of Florida. I was a national judge with the United States Police K-9 Association and went all over the country judging handlers and dogs. I know my way around a dog. I can spot a handler that should be part of the unit, and I certainly have recommended that others not be. This training document that is being worked on now, it's not new to work on the K-9 training manual because it's a fluid document. There's always changes coming out. There's always different people that are instructing. At one time, I was the regional instructor. We taught handlers and dogs from all over north central Florida. And we participated in demonstrations for Bradford County, Stark, surrounding cities to see if they might be interested in a K-9 unit. A lot of those places still have their dogs. I'd like to say that it appears to me that during my tenure as a K-9 sergeant and trainer, that back then we had the trust of the community. We did. We participated in a lot of demonstrations, and we got letters of recommendations from any and everybody. I still have a lot of those. It appears that some people, the unit has trust, and other people, they don't. That's up to the chief to decide, and Lieutenant, I'm sorry, Mike, I can't remember right now, but the new lieutenant in charge of the K-9 unit. He's a very capable individual. I worked at the department when he came on, and he's just the person you want at the police department to oversee the training. But it's just like any other training, and I'm running out of time, I guess, huh? Am I over now?
Just about, but please conclude.
Okay. It's just like any other unit. Those training documents are fluid too. They are capable people of instruction for traffic, for motorcycles, for SWAT teams, for use of force, defensive tactics. It's all fluid. There's never a static topic that associates itself with the police department. I'm sure that the fire department has fluid training as well, and any other.
We're going to have to ask you to bring it to a close, if you
Okay.
would, please, officer. Thank you, though. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
comments. Taryn, our next speaker.
Our next speaker is CJ Parker Warren, followed by Reverend Milford Griner.
I'm Carrie Parker Warren, and thanks for the opportunity. I'd like to start with saying that I'm very, very sorry that that accident happened to that young man with the dog. I'm very, very sorry for that. I'm also sorry for all of the people over 60 years ago that dogs were turned on our people because they just wanted an equal opportunity. However, I do not want the city to abandon the K-9 unit personally. I think that we do need a change. We need some more training. We need some more officers. I don't want to fire the police chief, and I guess maybe because I'm partial to police chiefs. Because I was married. I was married to one.
There is definitely some history there.
Yeah. The first African-American police chief in Gainesville. That's why I said that. I'm not flirting with the police chief. But I think that we need strict guidelines that need to be followed. We need good, honest handlers for the dog. We need them to be well-trained, and we need well-bred handlers too, that care about people and that are intelligent. We need dogs that are not killer dogs. We need dogs that are well-trained. We need smart dogs, and there are some dogs that are very, very intelligent. Our dogs are very valuable when they're used properly. First of all, there is a crime deterrent when you have a dog around. There are risks to even carrying guns and sticks. There are some necessary risks too. We need dogs at our high school because every year we have bomb threats. And I don't think any of us want to be trained as a bomb sniffer. We need our dogs for our schools and for other things. There was a study on TV the other night that says during one of the, I think it was one of our wars, that there were over 10,000 lives saved as a result of canines. Also, when our parents and our neighbors are lost in the woods as a result of having Alzheimer's, we need our canines to go in and find them. When our babies and our children are lost in the woods, we need canines to go in and sniff them out. We also need canines for fleeing felons.
Ms. Parker Warren, I'm going to have to ask you to sum it
Okay.
up.
If I have a problem at 1136, you can bring the kennel out because I want to be protected and we need safety and protection. I want the dogs when they come out to my house. Do you understand? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker Warren. Our next speaker.
Madam Chair, at this time, I will withdraw any comments on this issue at this time.
Thank you very much, Reverend Griner. Colleague?
First, I will make plain that I am not speaking for the Police Advisory Council. And secondly, if it please the dais, I'm perfectly willing to resign immediately from the Police Advisory Council rather than defer offering this comment. Excuse me. I've spoken many times that I want to see the end of the K-9 unit. And again, it has to do with the burden of history that the use of dogs for hunting escaped African-American enslaved people. It's part of the evolution of policing in this country. Moreover, the use of German Shepherds is a military hangover as far as the use of dog breeds. Let me read you this list of dog breeds. Bloodhound, Basset, Beagle, Labrador, then German Shepherd, Dachshund, obviously not useful, Coonhound, Black and Tan, Malinois, Spaniel, another Coonhound, the Blue Tick. This is a list of the acuity of dog noses. German Shepherd ranks 5th before 4 other breeds that are less muscular, cheaper to feed, more loyal, and easier to train. It makes a lot of sense to move away from the tank of a dog. You don't need the muscle, you need the nose. You need the dog to find suspects, to find vulnerable people who may be lost for rescue and recovery effort, and possibly to interfere with violent behavior by an armed person. You don't need the largest dog to do that. These smaller breeds can very well interfere with somebody, but without the ability to tear pieces off of their body. We don't need flesh rippers to get the best nose, which is the highest and best use of a police dog. We need police dogs because human noses do not have millions of receptors of a dog nose. That is the main point. So why use these huge, muscular, expensive to feed, headstrong dogs? The wolf has 99.9% of their DNA is still wolf. So that feral, carnivore hunting instinct is very strong in the breed. So there's every reason to move away from that breed. Now also, if I can say this quickly, everybody in that unit was part of the toxic culture that we have lots of evidence of. So everybody who was there, if they didn't participate, they did let it ride. They accepted it. So we need to clear the deck, just like you don't tell your cancer doc to to take out part of the tumor. It needs to be all new personnel and less lethal dogs.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. Taryn, next speaker.
The next speaker we have is Donald Shepard, followed by, I believe this says Perlette Boone.
Hi, my name is Donald Shepard. I'm a People's Representative, and as a People's Representative, I choose to represent the K-9 unit that we desperately need. Some of the things that are being said against the K-9 units are not true, like this incident of the last attack on a young man that took and was filmed. You've mentioned about, and people mentioned about it showing a film of this, but the film that was showed on TV compared to the film that showed at the police department that is in evidence shows that that young man and several others had slapped the dog or made a move toward the dog, and the dog is trained. If you're going to slap me, I'm going to take and bite you in response to stop you from your actions. That is a proven fact. The gentleman that spoke here and this lady, they know for a fact. I know for a fact. I've been through every force there is out there. And to be honored by that is the 47 years that I put in as an officer, training in every field that I could to make myself the best, well-known force officer that is on the field among others that are fighting for the credibility of our police force and our dogs. They are our tools, and for the people to take and say anything against that dog, they need to research the history of it. And years ago, Mr. Blunt is right. Years ago, the dogs were used to take and hunt down people and did attack the people. That is a record-proven fact. But now we have nothing of that. We have more trained dogs out there in the force that are getting accused of this and that need to be wiped from the record because of the, and also I wanted to mention in my last 4 minutes, 39 minutes, that we need a training school for the officers and for the K-9 units. There's not been any money for that in the past. We need to take a right to our president or call our president and ask for this money to take and be accountable to cities and towns so this can take and be accountable for these dogs and these officers to be trained in a proper form. That way these dogs or these officers are not putting their knee on the necks of other individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard. Taryn, our next speaker.
This is the last speaker card that I have. It says Perlette Boone.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak. And I'm speaking on behalf of the constituents. When it comes to, dogs and, humans' reality, I'm representing in response to life and the value of life. I studied with Professor Gabriel Aldo-Yibo, and I've learned that the universal reality is now, since 1990, it has been revealed what life is. Never before did anyone know what life really was. They could never prove it. Life is a piece of the universal creator within all of us. That is more important than anything else, a K-9 or anything. And there's a geometry order to this. Humans have been given the ultimate in intelligence. So using that intelligence should be on the forefront more than anything, whether it's an animal or a dog or whatever it is. But that life, my request is that, you begin to look into the geometry of things. Life is more important than anything else. I've not heard anyone too much. Well, there's been talk about life and the value of it, but that needs to be number one more than anything, Thank you for allowing me to share this information. And I have numbers if you want more information. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Boone. Taryn, you said that's our final speaker? Okay, thank you. If there is no one else who will come forward to receive a card, we will bring it back to the dais. Commissioner Chestnut, I see your light.
Lee, could I address you for about 10 minutes?
10 minutes?
For 10 minutes.
Sure. I'm more than happy to speak with you after the meeting is what?
No, I mean right now.
Oh, right now during the meeting. So generally, sir, we allow for a 3-minute time period, a 3-minute time.
That's 20 seconds.
I understand. And then we would have to do a red robin with everybody else in the room, to be fair. But I kindly welcome you. Here's what I would say to that. I can pretty much guarantee you that this is not going to be your final opportunity to speak, either at a community conversation or in this chamber. I guarantee you there will be another opportunity. This cannot be the end of this today. As a matter of fact, the only thing that we have addressed today, sir, is the motion. So we've begun to scratch the surface on this multi-layered. We absolutely will, and I welcome you, okay? Thank you very much. Okay, Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. Well, actually, my question is for, I don't remember what rank you retired at, Don. Sorry?
She said, what rank did you say you retired? Could you repeat your question?
That's okay.
What rank did you retire at?
Sergeant.
It's okay. I have a question. No, I have a question for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right, if you go to the microphone. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you said, then Sergeant Surratt.
Yes.
S-U-R-E-T-H.
S-U-E-R-E-T-H.
S-U-D-R-T-H. Okay, thank you. All right, you said that you had been over the K-9 unit for 18 years.
No, ma'am. I joined in 78. I was a
Okay.
part of the K-9 unit for 18 and a half years. I was in charge beginning probably 85 to 98.
Okay, all right. Well, my question is on other breeds of canines. In your experience,
Yes, ma'am.
have you had any?
Oh, yes. I've trained Dobermans. I would not suggest going to a Doberman again.
I wouldn't either.
Those would be of concern because they were bred specifically to put in a fenced-in compound and have them tear up anybody that goes through. We did not do that. We never put a Doberman in service. And if I might add, we're very sensitive to what went on in Birmingham. When I became in charge of the K-9 unit, I made sure that we didn't have anything like that go through our training. If we had a dog that was capable of doing what they did in Birmingham, they would not be on the streets of Gainesville. We did not accept any over vicious dogs. We didn't, and we also had to have them have the capability of protecting their handler and other officers and other people if need be.
Okay, all right. So, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. My question is for the chief then. This is on what other breeds of dogs are used across the country?
So
Do you have any information on that?
Basically, you have a couple of different delineations, apprehension dogs and tracking. We sampled, quite frankly, Florida, and we, as we reported, 96 out of 96 either use or have apprehension dogs. We checked in an effort to try to get some information, make sure we could respond intelligently to this question. We looked at other agencies that were comparable to our size, or closer to our size. We did check the top 10, like the 5 above, 5 below. We checked 10 other agencies. All of them use either German Shepherds or Belgian Malinois.
Okay.
And that seemed to be the most common denomination. What we found is that typically when you look at corrections typically would have bloodhounds because the folks that they are searching for escaped from prison and then more than likely are not armed with firearms. Whereas when we're dealing with people on the streets where firearms are plentiful, a lot of the folks we encounter have firearms, therefore we need a dog that would be able to neutralize that danger. So when you're hunting for someone in the woods that escaped from a prison, you notice that when you see them, they typically have 2 to 3, sometimes 4 tactical officers with them. Those tactical officers are armed with shotguns and other firearms because they're there in case the person doesn't comply, and they have a superior number of people that and they're dealing with people typically who are not armed with a firearm. They may arm themselves with a stick or a knife or something like that, and that's where the firearms that the people that are searching for them typically come in.
Okay, so when you say apprehension dogs, it's just basically 2 dogs in that category, German Shepherds and what you call the other one, Malinois?
Belgian Malinois.
Malinois, Belgian.
And I'm sure there may be another breed out there, but those are the 2. I don't know if Don knows of any other, but those are the 2 that I'm most familiar with.
Thank you. I conclude.
Thank you very much. Chief, if you would stay for just a moment, because I have a question about something that I don't believe we've covered in this meeting today. But it has come to my attention that there are a couple of different tactics that are used throughout different K-9 departments. And one is the find and bite versus the find and bark.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do we employ?
We used to find and bite.
Find and bite,
Yes.
okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between the 2 tactics, why we use find and bite, what would happen if we used find and bark, or why we don't use find and bark?
The bark, I think, doesn't have the same measure of safety that the bite does, because if we're searching for a person, that, particularly with the way that we delineate what we search for now, we're looking for people that have committed felonies, and the revision says violent felonies, violent forcible felonies, forcible felonies, which in the state statute, they list things such as air piracy, homicide, aggravated battery. These are crimes that are typically committed with weapons. And if a person has a weapon, we want to be able to, we're searching for a location, we want that dog to be able to go in, find that person, and to neutralize that threat. If they stand there and bark, then they're alerting the person that they're there, but they also put themselves in danger as well, because now the person may be tempted to shoot the dog and stop the dog from barking or harm the dog in some other fashion. Most agencies, again, sample the size, and you don't have to take our data. You can contact other agencies yourself. Most agencies employ the find and bite. Most of them do not do the find and bark. Again, there's a measure of safety to both the officer and the K-9. And again, the use of the K-9s aren't just for the officer's safety. It's really for the safety of the people that they're trying to apprehend and the citizens at large.
Chief, are we still employing the tactic that well, let me ask it like this. Are we announcing the presence of the dog?
It all depends on the situation. Typically, if we're going into a structure where we think a person may be, we announce, we give them an opportunity to give themselves up. If we're going into a limited area where we think the person may be, we may make that announcement going in. One of the revisions to the policy that we have is that we would do that if we have available over the megaphone from a car to make sure, even if we're searching a wooded area. But you cannot walk through the woods continually announcing your location to a person that might be armed with a firearm, because if you do that, you could become, again, a victim. So you make that announcement before you go into the woods as loud as you can and make them aware that you're searching for them, that you have a K-9, and give them an opportunity to come up. And I like to say, in the majority of the cases, when we make that announcement, folks come out. So 10% of the time, they do not. That's what we've been averaging so far.
What does ASO do with their dogs? Do they do find and
Yes.
bite as well?
Yes.
Okay. And they don't announce repeatedly in wooded areas. They announce when they're going into, I'm trying to find out what the difference is between our two
To
policies.
the best of my knowledge, the practices that we have, this is almost an industry standard that you do not walk through the woods yelling, "Here I am." You know, you make that announcement prior. You may make that announcement if you think you're within the area, but when you get close, and the dog reacts a certain way when they get close, and if you know that they're in a particular area, and you think you're within, and you have an eyesight of it, they may announce. But a person that probably could speak to that a little bit more would be Sergeant Sureth, because he actually did this for many years. But typically, you do not make those announcements continually. You make it once, it's loud. In our revision, one of the things that we put in is we want to have it done for vehicles close by on a megaphone, so they could travel throughout that wooded area. But that's the most, at this point, that I think that's the most appropriate approach for us. And I believe that's a little bit more than one of the agencies will be doing.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Chestnut, did you have anything else? No. Okay. I did want to acknowledge that Ms. Payne, I believe you walked in a little bit, first of all, after we had finished taking public comment. I did want to acknowledge that the card was given to us.
I'm part of the advisory board, but I was asked not to. I've been here the whole time.
I understand.
I hear the other comments of the people who continue. I've been at the public meetings and stuff. I wanted to respect what we were asked not to do, but I thought there would be more information at this meeting, actually, because there has been information that's come out of changes. So, to the policy. So I just wanted to actually ask some questions and information.
Thank you very much. I believe we got some guidance from the attorney at the very top. Since this this meeting has not been noticed as a PAC meeting or a joint meeting with the PAC, and you've had some individuals from the PAC who've already spoken, that this would not be the venue today, but I can tell you, Ms. Payne, that there will be other opportunities. The city manager and the GPD are continuing to collect information. We are so far, I believe, from the finish line with this, but we have been able to provide at least a little bit of information and respond to what's on the agenda today, which is a beginning look at the motion that was put forward last year. So we'll be coming back, and please know that you will have additional opportunities to, first of all, hear more information as it is gathered, and then to give your insight. Commissioner Chestnut will probably discuss how we can make opportunities for the PAC to give their comments as well. Okay?
I want to be in support of my brother, colleague.
Thank you very much, Ms. Payne. Thank you very much. Okay? All right. Well, with that, I see that Manager Curry has stepped out for a second. I actually did have a question for her. And Dan, did she mention anything to you? Is she coming, is she coming right back?
No, I'll be happy to go check.
Would you please?
Sure.
Thank you very much. While we're waiting, if I could defer back to the sergeant. Was it Sergeant Sureth? Please help me to pronounce your name.
Don Sureth.
Don Sureth. Okay, thank you very much. I did want to ask you one final question, I believe. And it actually dovetails the question that Commissioner Chestnut asked Chief Scott with reference to the breed of dog, because one of the concerns that I've heard voiced repeatedly from several members of the community is that they're concerned that there may be other breeds who can efficiently and effectively do the work. We have heard about the German Shepherds, we've heard about the Belgian Malinois, but when you talk about beagles or you talk about another type of dog, I'm certainly no dog expert by any stretch of the imagination.
That is a very good question. I'm glad you allowed me to respond to that.
Yes.
And this gentleman's got a very good point, too. I mean, he brought it up. But one of the things I need to stress, yes, we have had other breeds. One is a Bouvier de Flanders, primarily sold in Europe. Ours worked out very well. His name was Breston, but you got to find those. And they're tough to find. They're not ideal for police work. But these dogs, I've got to tell you, they are not golf clubs. You know, you don't have a putter. You don't have any other club to do what they need to do. And if you have one dog And what's the ideal dog that would be used for searching drugs? So probably a beagle. That's true, but that beagle's not going to do you very much good if somebody's armed in that building. The Coast Guard uses beagles, but they use them on boats. But I don't know of any police departments that don't use shepherds or Malinois. And that's the reason is because we used to sell our dogs to the public that would come to our demonstrations, and they were the ones that you can't turn back the bullet. You can turn back the dog. And that's how they were trained, and they worked very well. I'm not familiar with the training process now. I haven't dealt with actively training these dogs since 1998. But I judged them. What I learned in the past still holds for the present. And I hope I answered your question.
You did. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that. Manager Curry, I see you're back. Thank you very much. I wanted to ask a question before we moved on to member comment about a potential timeline for the changes that you are anticipating coming back.
I'm thinking meeting-wise. I think probably about a month is about as much as we would take. Many of the changes, and let me have a little bit of a commentary around it. These are operating general policy guidelines in the police department to operate police operations. We normally do not bring those, nor do we bring them in the fire department or any other department back to the commission for approval. And it would not be my intent to bring these back. I am of the opinion that at this point, we have heard the concern from the commission. There is no policy change at this point in time as to whether we have a K-9 unit or not. Right now, we have a K-9 unit. It is deployed in a limited capacity, but it is still deployable. And we have backup from the sheriff's office to give us whatever coverage we need beyond what we currently have. But unless a policy changes where the commission says no K-9 unit, that is a policy that this commission can adopt, we will proceed with the K-9 unit. We will proceed with the input that comes from this committee, input that comes from the community, input that comes from wherever it comes from, that can be taken in by the police department, sworn officers, folk who have been trained to do this work, and lay out a policy that can be shared with the commission. But I would not submit it to the commission specifically for approval, because that would then set up the operations in a way that we are now managing the police work from the dais. And I just wanted to say that.
And I understand that you're absolutely right. It is not within our purview to get involved in the day-to-day. I had to ask that because what we've heard from you is that things are still in process. That is true. And so, of course, we'll have questions about where you will land and where you end up.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's fine. And I'm also understanding that you have one more community meeting. Is that what I heard?
Yes. Yvette is here. She's been struggling with the venue, which is where we were when we started to do the meetings. We didn't want to give anyone the impression that the meetings were just on the east side of Gainesville. That was clearly not where we were. We were struggling with trying to find a venue. And Ms. Carter, if I might just direct my attention to Ms. Carter, I don't know if we've been successful. I think that the rec center's AC is out, and so we didn't want to do that. And you may be looking at another possibility. So if you would.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Manager, Commissioners, Yvette Carter, City Manager's Office. So we have a few feelers. We have a few asks out for locations on the western side of Gainesville. We have one out to Westwood Middle School. We have one out now to Littlewood Elementary School, and one out to, I think it's Vita Life Church. Is that, am I saying it? Vita Life Church. So we're waiting to hear back for the 3 of them, but we will have it on Monday, April 10th. We don't want to get too far away from when the original meetings occurred, and additionally, the time constraints for some of the key players. So we will have it on April 10th somewhere inside with air conditioning in the western side of Gainesville.
So I would think, thank you, Ms. Carter. So within a month, we should have this wrapped up.
Thank you very much, Manager Curry. Commissioner Chestnut, I see your light.
Yes. So, Mr. Manager, what I hear you saying is the only direction you're looking for from the commission is whether or not to have a K-9 unit or not. But as far as the operating manual, the operations, we are not to, you're going to spank our hands. We're not to delve into that.
I wouldn't go that far, but I would have concerns about how that rolls out and how it looks based on the charter and based on the role of the commission versus role of the manager and our operations.
Okay, so then just to follow up, then are you actively recruiting more officers for the K-9 unit, because we're at 2? So could you give us an update there? That's what I'm interested in.
Yes, ma'am. So we have 2 for apprehension, and I believe we may have 2 on the other side. I would prefer, I'm not sure who, okay. They're gonna come forward because I wanna make sure that whatever we put in the record is accurate. And this is the new K-9 supervisor?
Yes, my name is
West?
Mike West.
Yes.
Hello, manager. So on April the 14th is our next tryout day. We just had a tryout 3 weeks ago. 4 people tried out. 2 people successfully passed it. 2 didn't. So we're trying to basically get the unit back up. So we're having another tryout and see if we get anyone successful in that process. So that's where we are.
So does that, so is that 4? You have-
Yes. Well,
Could you put the numbers on the record so that it's clear?
Yes, 4. We want 4. We have 2 now. We have 2 more, so we have a total of 4, and we're trying to get 2 more additional. That's the intent.
Okay, so are you trying to get to 4 or 6?
We're trying to get to 6.
6, that's the number we're looking for.
Yeah, that doesn't
6.
include the supervisor of the unit.
And that, at 6, you would be at full complement?
As full as can be. So you
Okay.
can always use more, but typically, I think that's what we had prior to all the movement and resignations.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Madam Manager. And once again, fully understanding where our role as commissioners stop. And yours is, as the manager, one thing, Commissioner Chestnut, that I think we can speak about, and we've heard from the city attorney on this, and we've also heard from our colleagues and our constituents, rather, is the issue of the oversight piece. So I think there's more. Let me ask this, and I am going to go back to the city manager here with this. In terms of the oversight, Madam Curry, the request that some sort of group, board, committee be put into place, where were we on that?
We didn't reach a conclusion short of what we currently have, which is the Police Advisory Council.
Right.
There was really nothing discussed that I'm recalling beyond what we currently have. We looked at some options. Ms. Spicer put some options on the table, but they have really not been discussed out openly.
Yeah. And that's the part where it does get back to policy, you see. So if that's something that we wanted to actually delve a little bit deeper in, and I'm saying this to you, Commissioner Chestnut, if that's where it was we decided that we wanted to continue to take this, and perhaps that's something that we continue to think about, we continue to speak to our constituents about, and even, participate in more of these community conversations about what it is they envision in that way. Because one of the concerns that I have often heard is the Police Advisory Council does serve a role, but I've even heard from some of those members that they're interested in seeing something that has a little more teeth. There is no, authority or real decision-making power from that body, and that is what the community is asking for. So for me, that bears out the opportunity for us to have even more conversations and do even more research in terms of what might be available and how we do that. Because there are a couple of ways I think that we might be able to meaningfully engage community in the decision-making process, even if it is expanding this board.
Okay, I've got a follow-up on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Madam City Manager, I think the former chief may have the answer I'm getting ready to ask about. The Blue Ribbon Task Force with E.T. York, you remember that one? I think it was the precursor to the Police Advisory Council.
That was the precursor. They were looking at
They have more-
efficiencies and models of that. I wasn't in
Oh,
the
you
command structure at that time, but I do remember the E.T. York board, and they were looking at how we can be efficient, more efficient, work with the sheriff department and a host of other things.
Okay, all right.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Madam Chair, if I might also just add, the subpoena power of police officers, I think, may have been stated in the record, maybe at the meeting in November, when you had the special meeting in November, we were talking about this issue. The city attorney may want to comment, but I think that may be the only drawback, is that if you had an expanded board, they could not subpoena officers. That board would not have the authority to subpoena police officers. I may be speaking out of turn, but.
Okay, yes.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I guess you're right in talking about how there hasn't been a lot of discussion about what this oversight, additional oversight or alternative oversight might be. There is that caveat, though, that we must adhere, and we will adhere to the police officers' law enforcement bill of rights, and that any oversight board would not have subpoena power over individual officers. So if it's the purpose of an additional or alternative oversight board to review policies, to review general statistics, to review matters in general about policing, to be advisory to a police chief, for example, that's different than if there was intended to have some oversight board looking into incidents. That is where I think you're not going to find examples of other police oversight boards really delving into that. And that's what's been prohibited by the Supreme Court, where that, any ordinance granting a authority to issue subpoenas by an oversight board to law enforcement was specifically preempted by the police officers' Bill of Rights. So I guess the direction you want to go is what's ripe for further discussion, perhaps, but with that limitation, obviously.
Sure. Thank you very much, Attorney Nee. Commissioner Chestnut?
okay, I'm just trying to get some clarification because it appears that Miami's board has the authority to conduct investigations and issue subpoenas.
Right.
Just not the law enforcement.
Okay, okay. All right, well then, that's a very important comma and statement that needs to be put there. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Attorney Nee, Manager Curry, and Commissioner Chestnut for kind of indulging me on that, because I think it's important for us to be able to respond to the community with regards to that. And I wanted to ask you, Madam Curry, as we kind of probably draw things to a close here, I do not want to presume to know what your next meeting is going to be. Is it going to be the same kind of format as the last two have been, just in a different location?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Because then what I am feeling like I probably want to do, and I don't know if once again, this is not an attempt to direct you, but it may literally be something that I do as a commissioner, is just to have a different type of experience in the community where there is whether it is a round table, whether it is a whatever, just a different type of interaction that allows for a more free-flowing of thought to hear from the community. And I appreciate what has been happening thus far, because it has been the police department who has been sharing the changes and the modifications that have been made and that they look forward to making. I think what I'm looking to hear now is from the community with regards to this oversight board and some of the other things that they've asked us for, because I don't think that we as commissioners, Commissioner Chestnut, can make sound decisions without being able to hear clearly from the community and what it is that they're asking of us. So we've heard this briefly, but I don't think that I have gotten enough information with regards to the what, the how, etc. Because there are some community members who have some extensive knowledge and also some desires. And to the extent that we may be able to address those issues, I'd like to at least attempt to do that. So that's something that I will kind of sit with. Thank you, Manager Curry, for letting me know what your plans are moving forward. And I will plan accordingly and make my intentions known at an upcoming commission meeting.
Madam Chair, if I might.
Yes.
The two meetings that we did have were traditional in that the police department had things to share.
For sure.
And the community had an opportunity to respond and also share. They were approximately 90 minutes. The first meeting went for 90 minutes. The second meeting went for 90 minutes plus, but there was disruption, and so we adjourned the meeting after we had gone for approximately 90 minutes. That is the traditional way of doing a community meeting. You're right, we can set it up differently. If you choose to have meetings in addition to, clearly, I invite that as well.
Absolutely.
And so we're here to work with you.
Thank you very much. I was at your initial meeting. I was at the first one and was unable to attend the second one. But I do know that the issues that we're speaking to today, the motion, were not things that we spoke to in those meetings.
That is absolutely correct. I'd also just like to say that whatever the input we received, we captured it, whether it was negative, whether it was extremely negative or not. What you see in terms of the comments that were captured from all of the speakers is very transparent. And we outlined it speaker by speaker at each one of those meetings, and that is in your backup as well.
I did see that. Thank you very much for that, Madam Curry. Okay. Commissioner Chestnut, did you have any additional comments that you'd like to make at this time?
Nope, I do not.
Okay, okay, absolutely. I wanted to just take this opportunity to thank everybody who came out to share with us today, to thank all of you who have been working really, really hard, those the officers, okay, the members of the community who have come out to express your concerns and share your hearts. That's greatly appreciated. There's a level of expertise in here that really is unparalleled, and we're doing our best to listen and implement in ways that will allow for the safety of everyone in this city. That's key. So with that being said, I believe we are at our next meeting date, which, Taryn, I believe you have given me some sad news with regards to some meeting dates. Apparently, it looks as though there are only a couple of dates that are available for our next meeting, the next 2 months, right, Taryn? So in April, it looks like there is only April 10th available, which is about 2 weeks from now. Wow.
Everything is happening April 10th.
Everything is happening April 10th.
The GRU bill will
Right.
become public on April 10th.
That day is just not a really good day. But then, Taryn, correct me if I'm wrong here, the next available date is May 8th if we don't do, if we don't meet on April 10th, the next date for us to have a meeting is May 8th. And then June is completely open, so.
I would go with May 8th. April 10th is going to be a pretty active day.
I agree. And I as much as I hate the length of time that is between the meetings, that clearly is what we're going to have to do, because April 10th is, that's a critical date where our heads will probably be spinning.
Yeah. So would it be at 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock.
Okay.
1 o'clock, May 8th. And let me also say this and ask this. So we know this conversation is not over, but we also know we have a full slate of issues and topics that are coming up. Taryn, would you refresh our memory as to the next agenda item at our next meeting?
At the next meeting, I know you discussed children's programs and inviting the school board and the children's trust.
So that's our summer programs. Is that at the next one? Okay, all right, thank you very much. So that, actually, I am kind of glad that we will be putting a little time in between so we can get those invitations out accordingly. So that would be good. But I will say this, once again, a reminder to everyone in this room, under the sound of our voices, this conversation is not over, okay? There will be community meetings in the future, and the potential that I may convene one myself, or Madam Curry, you and I will talk, and we'll figure out how to best roll out addressing, allowing the community to speak to a few of the things that we've spoken to today, okay? But this conversation is not over, okay? And then there will be a, final decision as to what happens. So we thank you. Commissioner, did you have anything else?
Nope, I do not.
Okay, no member comment? We've got our next meeting date. Well, with that being said, we thank you all for being present today. This meeting is adjourned.